Stop. The word never left his lips, but it locked his entire body in place. Sebastian Cole had been walking through the marble lobby of the Grant Tower Hotel, his assistant half a step behind him, listing numbers from a deal worth over 8 figures, but none of it registered anymore. Because 2 small figures had just run past him, laughing, their sneakers squeaking faintly against the polished floor, and something about them made the air feel thinner. He didn't turn right away. He didn't need to. His body already knew. Slowly, almost unwillingly, he looked over his shoulder. The boys had stopped near the glass doors, sunlight pouring in behind them, outlining their silhouettes in gold. They couldn't have been older than 5. Maybe 6. One nudged the other, whispering something, and they both looked back, directly at him. And that's when it happened. Sebastian forgot how to breathe. It wasn't just familiarity. It wasn't coincidence. It was recognition on a level that didn't make sense, like hearing your own voice played back when you weren't speaking. Their eyes. Steel grey, sharp at the edges, soft in the center. Exactly like his. Not similar. Not close. The same. He felt something cold slide down his spine, a quiet, creeping realization that didn't have words yet. His assistant kept talking, closing by Q3 if the board signs off, sir. No response. Sebastian didn't hear him. He didn't hear anything. The lobby noise faded into a dull hum, like he'd been dropped underwater. The boys turned away again, already distracted, already moving on, but Sebastian couldn't. He stood there, unmoving, as if the ground had claimed him. His chest tightened, not from panic, but from something deeper. Something older. A memory trying to surface but not quite breaking through. He had seen those eyes before. Not in a mirror. Not in a photograph. In a moment. A single moment that now flickered at the edge of his mind like a damaged film reel. 5 years ago. A name almost formed, then disappeared before he could catch it. He blinked hard, as if that might reset whatever was happening. It didn't. The boys were pushing through the revolving door now, sunlight swallowing them whole, but the imprint of them stayed burned into his vision. Sebastian exhaled slowly, but the breath felt wrong, like it belonged to someone else. Sir, his assistant tried again, more cautious this time. Sebastian raised a hand without looking, silencing him instantly. His gaze was still fixed on the doors, on the space where they had just been. Did you see them? He asked quietly. His voice didn't sound like his own. The assistant hesitated. See who, sir? Sebastian didn't answer right away. Because how do you explain something that doesn't make sense yet? How do you say, I just saw 2 children who look like they belong to me, when that's impossible? His jaw tightened. He replayed the moment in his head, frame by frame. The way they moved. The way they looked at him. Not curious. Not shy. Familiar. As if he was the strange one for staring. As if they had already decided he didn't matter. That part hit harder than it should have. Sebastian took a step forward without realizing it. Then another. His assistant followed, confused but silent. He didn't know where he was going yet. He just knew he couldn't stand still anymore. Because something inside him had shifted. Something precise and controlled, something that had built his entire empire, had just cracked in the smallest, most dangerous way. And for the first time in years, Sebastian Cole wasn't thinking about profit, or power, or control. He was thinking about a pair of grey eyes that didn't belong to strangers. And a memory that refused to stay buried. Sebastian should have walked away. That would have been the logical choice. He had a schedule packed down to the minute, a board waiting upstairs, investors expecting answers, and a reputation built on never letting distractions interfere with decisions. But logic had already failed him the moment those boys looked back. He stepped through the revolving door and into the late afternoon light, the city noise rushing back all at once, taxis honking, people talking, footsteps echoing along the sidewalk, yet none of it touched him. His focus narrowed to one thing only. The boys were just ahead, moving along the edge of the plaza, weaving effortlessly through the crowd like they had done it 100 times before. He slowed his pace, not wanting to draw attention, not even sure what he was doing, only that stopping now felt impossible. There was a strange pull in his chest, not urgency, not panic, but something quieter and far more dangerous. Recognition without explanation. One of the boys laughed again, a light, clear sound that carried just enough for Sebastian to hear. It hit him harder than it should have. There was something familiar in the rhythm of it, something that tugged at a place in his memory he had not visited in years. He clenched his jaw slightly, trying to steady himself. This was irrational. Children shared features all the time. Genetics played tricks. Coincidences happened. That was the explanation. That had to be the explanation. But then the taller one turned his head just slightly, and Sebastian caught the profile again. The angle of the jaw. The way his brow lowered when he focused on something ahead. It was not just similarity anymore. It was precision. Exact, unsettling precision. Sebastian stopped walking. The boys kept going, unaware, disappearing moment by moment into the movement of the city. His assistant finally caught up beside him, slightly out of breath. "Sir, the meeting, cancel it." The words came out instantly, without hesitation. Even he did not question them. His assistant blinked, clearly thrown off. Cancel, all of it. Sebastian did not look at him. His eyes were still locked ahead. Everything. There was a pause, the kind that never happened around him, but the assistant nodded quickly and stepped away, already on the phone, already adjusting a schedule that no one else in the company would have been allowed to touch. Sebastian barely noticed. Because the boys had stopped again. This time near a small street vendor, pointing at something, talking over each other in that effortless, overlapping way only children could manage. He moved closer, closing the distance just enough to hear. "No, you said Mom said we could pick one," the shorter one insisted, crossing his arms. "She said one each, not two each," the other corrected, his tone oddly calm, almost measured. Sebastian felt his chest tighten again. That tone. Controlled. Thoughtful. Too familiar. He had used that exact tone in boardrooms, in negotiations, in moments where emotion had to be managed, contained. Hearing it from a child made something inside him shift again. He stood there longer than he should have, watching, listening, trying to fit the pieces together in a way that made sense. But nothing did. Because there was only one question that mattered now, rising slowly, steadily, refusing to be ignored. Who are they, and why do they feel like they belong to me? The question did not leave him alone. It stayed there, steady and persistent, threading itself through every rational explanation he tried to construct. Sebastian shifted his weight slightly, his gaze never leaving the two boys as they debated over something trivial, something ordinary, as if they were not quietly unraveling the structure of his entire world. He took another step closer, close enough now to notice the smaller details that should not have mattered but somehow did. The shorter one tapped his foot when he was impatient, a quick, rhythmic motion that Sebastian felt in his chest before he even recognized it. The other tilted his head slightly when he listened, eyes narrowing just enough to signal focus, not confusion. It was precise. It was exact. It was him. The realization came in fragments, not all at once, like pieces of glass catching light at different angles. A memory surfaced without warning. A quiet room. A window half open. The faint sound of rain against the glass. A woman standing just out of reach, her voice steady but her eyes anything but. Amelia. The name landed softly, but it did not fade. It stayed. 5 years ago. He had not thought about that night in a long time, not in detail, not in the way it deserved. It had been easier to file it away under decisions made, under things that did not fit into the life he was building. But now the edges of that memory sharpened whether he wanted them to or not. The way she had looked at him, not angry, not pleading, just certain. That had been the part that unsettled him the most. Not what she said, but how she said it. As if she already knew how everything would end. Sebastian inhaled slowly, but the air felt different now, heavier somehow. His eyes flicked back to the boys, anchoring himself to the present, but the past refused to let go. The taller one reached for something on the stand, then hesitated, glancing sideways at his brother first, waiting, measuring, deciding. That pause. That exact pause. Sebastian had seen it in the mirror his entire adult life. He took another step forward before he could stop himself, the distance between them closing again, not because he had made a conscious decision, but because something deeper had already decided for him. This was no longer curiosity. This was not even suspicion. This was recognition trying to become truth. The shorter boy laughed again, then looked up briefly, his gaze sweeping across the street, and for a split second, it landed on Sebastian once more. This time, he did not look away immediately. He studied him, just for a moment longer than a child normally would, as if trying to place something that did not quite fit. Sebastian felt his chest tighten again, but this time it came with something sharper. A question that did not belong to logic or reason. A question that came from instinct alone. What if they recognized it too? He exhaled slowly, steadying himself, but the thought had already taken root. Because if he could see himself in them this clearly, then what else had he missed? And more importantly, what had been kept from him? The memory shifted again, clearer now. Amelia standing in that doorway, her hand resting lightly against her side, her voice quieter than he remembered, but firm in a way that left no room for argument. You made your choice, Sebastian. The words echoed now, not as accusation, but as fact. He had dismissed them at the time, categorized them as emotion, as something temporary, something that would pass. But standing here now, watching two children who carried his face without his permission, without his knowledge, he realized something that unsettled him far more than the resemblance itself. That night had not ended the way he thought it did. It had only been the beginning of something he had never been allowed to see. The city kept moving around him, unaware that something irreversible had just shifted. Sebastian stood there for one more second, then another, as if waiting for the feeling to pass, for logic to reassert itself, for the world to return to something familiar. It did not. The boys were still there, still real, still carrying pieces of him in ways that defied coincidence. This time, he did not hesitate. He closed the remaining distance with measured steps, controlled, deliberate, the same way he approached every negotiation, every decision that mattered. But this was different. There was no strategy here. No prepared outcome. Only a question that demanded an answer. He stopped a few feet behind them, close enough to hear their voices clearly now. You always pick first, the shorter one complained, though there was no real anger in his tone. Because I think faster, the other replied calmly, reaching for a small wrapped item from the vendor's display. Sebastian's chest tightened again. That calm certainty. That quiet confidence. It was not learned behavior. It was instinct. He knew it because he had lived it. Before he could stop himself, he spoke. You should let him choose this time. His voice cut gently through their conversation, steady but unmistakably firm. Both boys turned at the same time. The movement was identical, synchronized without effort, and for a brief second, the world seemed to narrow again to just the three of them. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. Not just the eyes now. The structure of their faces. The way their expressions shifted, subtle but precise. Sebastian felt it again, that strange pull in his chest, stronger this time, harder to ignore. The taller one studied him first, cautious but not afraid. Why? He asked simply. Sebastian almost smiled, not because of the question, but because of how it was asked. Direct. Unapologetic. Because fairness matters, Sebastian replied, his tone even. And sometimes thinking faster does not mean thinking better. The boy considered that, his brow lowering slightly, just enough to signal that he was taking the answer seriously. The other boy looked between them, then spoke without hesitation. Mom says that too. The words landed quietly, but they echoed louder than anything else had. Sebastian's pulse shifted, not faster, but heavier. "Your mom sounds smart," he said, carefully, watching their reactions more closely now. The shorter one nodded immediately. "She is. She says we have to listen before we decide." Sebastian exhaled slowly, the air catching in his chest for a fraction of a second. "Listen before we decide." The phrase hit something buried deep in his memory, something he had not heard in years, but recognized instantly. Amelia used to say that. Not often. Just enough that it stayed. He had dismissed it back then as idealism, as something that did not belong in the world he operated in. But hearing it now, spoken so naturally by a child, made it feel different. Made it feel real. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to their level without thinking about it, his usual distance from others forgotten in the moment. "What are your names?" he asked, his voice quieter now, more careful. The boys exchanged a quick glance, a silent conversation passing between them before either answered. Then the taller one spoke. "I am Lucas." He gestured to his brother. "And he is Leo." Sebastian repeated the names in his mind, anchoring them there, feeling the weight of them settle in a way that was both unfamiliar and unsettlingly right. Lucas and Leo. He nodded once, slow, controlled, but inside, something had already begun to shift further than he could contain. Because now they were not just faces. Not just resemblance. They had names. And somehow, that made everything feel far more real than he was prepared for. Lucas and Leo. The names did not fade. They settled into his mind with a weight that felt undeserved and yet impossible to ignore. Sebastian held their gaze for a moment longer than necessary, as if trying to memorize every detail before something changed. Because something always did. It was how his world worked. Moments like this did not last. But before he could say anything else, before he could push further, a voice cut through the air behind them. "Lucas. Leo." It was not loud. It did not need to be. The boys reacted instantly, turning toward the sound with a familiarity that came from routine, from trust, from knowing exactly who was calling them. Sebastian felt it before he saw her. That same quiet certainty from years ago, the same presence that did not demand attention but commanded it anyway. He straightened slowly, his body already preparing for something his mind had not fully caught up to yet. She stepped into view a second later, moving through the small gap between people with a calm that felt untouched by the noise around her. Amelia Brooks. The name did not arrive gradually this time. It hit him all at once, sharp and undeniable. 5 years collapsed into a single breath. She looked different. Of course she did. Time always left its mark. But not in the way he expected. There was no hesitation in her posture, no uncertainty in the way she moved. If anything, she seemed more grounded, more certain of herself than she had been back then. Her eyes found the boys first, a quick scan, a silent check, and then they shifted. And stopped. On him. For a fraction of a second, nothing moved. Not the crowd, not the air, not even the thoughts in his head. It was the same look. Not surprise. Not fear. Recognition. And something else layered beneath it. Something controlled. Something deliberate. Amelia did not react the way most people did when they saw him. She did not falter. She did not soften. She held his gaze, steady and unreadable, as if she had already prepared for this moment long before it ever happened. Lucas spoke first, unaware of the shift in tension. "Mom, he said I should let Leo pick first." Amelia's attention flicked to her sons, and for just a second, something softer appeared in her expression, something that did not belong to the version of her standing in front of Sebastian. "Did he?" she said quietly, her voice even, controlled. "Then maybe you should listen." The simplicity of it hit harder than it should have. Sebastian watched her closely now, every detail, every shift in her expression, every breath. She did not look surprised to see him. That was the first thing that settled uncomfortably in his mind. As if this had always been a possibility. She had accounted for. As if she had been waiting. Leo tugged lightly at her hand. Can we get one? Amelia nodded without looking away from Sebastian. One each. The boys turned back to the vendor, their focus shifting instantly, their world still small, still contained. But Sebastian's was not. Not anymore. Because Amelia finally moved her gaze fully to him, not as someone seeing a stranger, but as someone facing something unfinished. You should not be here, she said quietly. No accusation. No anger. Just a statement. That unsettled him more than anything else could have. Because it meant she was not surprised. It meant this was not a coincidence to her. Sebastian felt his jaw tighten slightly, his control returning just enough to hold his voice steady. I was about to say the same thing. Amelia held his gaze for another second, then something in her expression shifted, subtle but undeniable. Not fear. Not even resistance. Something closer to acceptance. But not the kind that made things easier. The kind that made them inevitable. Then we both know that does not matter, she replied. And just like that, the past was no longer something buried. It was standing right in front of him. And it had brought two names with it that he could no longer pretend did not exist. The space between them felt smaller now, even though neither of them moved. The noise of the street returned in fragments, footsteps passing, distant traffic, the vendor handing the boys their choices, but everything around Sebastian blurred into something secondary, something distant. Amelia stood exactly where she was, one hand resting lightly near Lucas as he counted his change, the other relaxed at her side, but there was nothing relaxed about her presence. It was controlled. Intentional. As if every movement had already been decided before he arrived. Sebastian studied her carefully, searching for something familiar, something that matched the memory he had just begun to reconstruct. He found pieces of it. The steadiness in her voice. The way she held eye contact without wavering. But there was something else now, something new. Distance. Not physical distance. Something deeper. Something earned. You knew this could happen, he said quietly, not as a question, but as a conclusion. Amelia did not answer immediately. She glanced briefly at the boys, making sure they were occupied, then returned her attention to him. I knew the world is smaller than people think, she replied. Her tone did not rise. It did not fall. It stayed exactly where it needed to be to keep control. Sebastian let out a slow breath, his mind already moving ahead, piecing together what he had seen, what he had heard, what he could no longer ignore. They are 5, he said, the number landing heavier than it should have. Approximately, Amelia corrected calmly. The word struck him harder than a direct answer would have. Approximately meant calculation. It meant precision. It meant she had done the math long before he ever thought to. Sebastian's jaw tightened slightly. You should have told me. The words came out more controlled than he expected, but there was something beneath them, something that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with something far more unfamiliar. Amelia's expression did not change. Not immediately. She held his gaze, steady, as if weighing whether the conversation deserved to go further. Would you have listened? She asked quietly. The question was simple. Direct. And it did not leave him room to deflect. For a moment, Sebastian did not answer. Because the truth was not immediate. It did not come easily. 5 years ago, he had been certain of everything. Certain of his decisions, his priorities, his path forward. There had been no space for uncertainty, no tolerance for anything that threatened control. And Amelia had stood directly in front of that. That is not the point, he said finally, though even as he said it, he knew it was not enough. Amelia tilted her head slightly, a small movement, but one that carried weight. It is exactly the point. The words did not come with accusation. They came with clarity. The kind that did not need to be defended. Behind them, Lucas laughed softly at something Leo said, the sound light, unburdened, completely separate from the tension unfolding just a few feet away. Sebastian's gaze flicked toward them for a brief second, then back to her. "You made that decision for me," he said, quieter now. Amelia's eyes softened for the first time, but not in a way that weakened her stance. If anything, it made it stronger. "No," she replied. "I made it for them." The distinction settled heavily between them. Sebastian felt it, understood it, even if he did not accept it. His mind moved quickly now, retracing timelines, reconstructing that night, every word, every detail he had dismissed as insignificant. And suddenly, nothing about it felt insignificant anymore. "They are mine," he said, not a question, not a guess, but a statement he could no longer keep contained. Amelia did not look away. She did not deny it. But she did not confirm it either. Instead, she held his gaze with that same quiet control that had unsettled him from the beginning. "You do not get to decide that here," she said softly. And for the first time since he had seen the boys, Sebastian realized something that shifted everything once again. This was not a moment he controlled. This was not a situation he could solve with logic, with power, with certainty. This was something else entirely. And Amelia had been carrying it alone for 5 years. The words did not resolve anything. They only made the silence between them heavier, sharper, more defined. Sebastian held her gaze, but his mind was already moving somewhere else, somewhere deeper, pulling apart every detail he had ignored, every moment he had dismissed as insignificant. 5 years. He repeated it again in his head, slower this time, forcing himself to stay with it instead of pushing past it like he always had. 5 years ago, Amelia had not argued with him the way most people did. She had not raised her voice, had not tried to convince him to change his mind. She had simply stepped back, as if she already understood something he did not. That was what unsettled him now. Not what she said. What she chose not to say. His eyes shifted briefly to Lucas and Leo, watching them carefully now, not just seeing them, but analyzing them, the way he would in any situation that required precision. Their age. Their height. The way they spoke, the way they reacted. It all aligned too cleanly. Too perfectly. Approximately 5. Amelia had not said that casually. She had calculated it. Which meant she had known from the beginning. Sebastian's chest tightened slightly as another fragment surfaced, clearer now, sharper than before. That night. The rain against the window. The quiet that had followed after everything else had already broken down between them. He had been standing near the door, already halfway gone, already committed to leaving everything behind that did not fit into the future he had decided on. Amelia had not tried to stop him. She had just watched him, her hand resting lightly against her side, not in a way that drew attention, but in a way that now felt impossible to ignore. At the time, he had not questioned it. He had not looked closely. He had not wanted to. Because looking closely meant acknowledging something he was not willing to deal with. Now, standing here, that single detail shifted everything. His breath slowed, not out of calm, but out of control, the kind he forced into place when something threatened to unravel faster than he could manage. That night, he said quietly, more to himself than to her, but Amelia heard it anyway. She did not interrupt. She did not correct him. She simply watched, the same way she had back then, as if she already knew where this would lead. Sebastian's gaze returned to her, sharper now, more focused, as the pieces locked into place one by one. "You knew," he said, the words landing heavier than before. "You knew before I left." It was not a question anymore. It was a realization that had finally caught up to him. Amelia exhaled slowly, not as a reaction, but as an acknowledgement that the conversation had reached the point she could no longer redirect. "I knew enough," she replied. The answer was careful. Not a full confirmation. Not a denial. Just enough truth to move forward without giving him control. Sebastian felt something shift again, something deeper than frustration, deeper than anger. It was the realization of what had been taken from him. Not intentionally. Not maliciously. But undeniably. 5 years of decisions made without information. That should have been his. 5 years of absence that he had never chosen with full understanding. His gaze flicked to the boys again, then back to her. You decided I did not deserve to know, he said, quieter now, but far more controlled. Amelia's expression did not harden. It did not soften. It stayed exactly where it had been from the beginning. I decided they deserved better than uncertainty, she answered. The distinction settled between them, heavier than anything else that had been said. Sebastian understood it. He did not agree with it. But he understood it. And that made it harder to dismiss. Because for the first time, the situation in front of him was not something he could simplify into right or wrong, into decision and consequence. It was something layered, something that had been building long before he had even realized it existed. And now that he finally saw it, there was no way to unsee it. No way to return to the version of reality he had been living just minutes ago. Because the truth was no longer hidden in fragments. It was standing in front of him, fully formed, waiting for him to decide what he was going to do with it. The realization did not explode all at once. It settled into him slowly, heavily, like something that had always been there but had only just been uncovered. Sebastian stood still for a moment longer, his gaze fixed on Amelia, but his thoughts were no longer entirely in the present. They moved between past and present, stitching together what he had missed, what he had chosen not to see, and what now refused to stay hidden. Lucas and Leo stepped closer to Amelia, each holding something small in their hands, their attention shifting naturally back to her, as if she was the center of everything. And in that moment, Sebastian saw it clearly. Not just resemblance. Not just possibility. Structure. Stability. A life built without him. That realization hit differently than anything else. We are leaving, Amelia said softly to the boys, her tone shifting just enough to signal that the moment was over for them, even if it was only beginning for him. Lucas nodded without question. Leo followed immediately. No hesitation. No confusion. They trusted her completely. Sebastian's chest tightened again, not from doubt this time, but from something sharper. Absence. 5 years of it. 5 years of moments like this that he had not been part of. Wait. The word came out before he could stop it. Amelia paused, but she did not turn immediately. She adjusted Leo's jacket slightly, brushing something invisible from the fabric, grounding herself in the small, controlled action before facing him again. This does not end here, Sebastian said, his voice steady, but there was something beneath it now, something that had not been there before. Not authority. Not control. Something closer to resolve. Amelia studied him for a moment, as if measuring whether he meant it, whether this was another decision he would walk away from once it became inconvenient. It already did, she replied quietly. The simplicity of the statement did not make it weaker. It made it final. But Sebastian shook his head slightly, his focus narrowing. No, he said, more firmly this time. You decided it did. I did not. The distinction landed between them, sharper now, more defined. Amelia's expression shifted, not dramatically, but enough for him to notice. A flicker of something passed through her eyes, something that was not resistance, not quite agreement, but something in between. Something unresolved. Behind her, Lucas looked up. Mom. The single word carried no tension, no awareness of the weight in the conversation, but it was enough to pull her attention back to where it needed to be. Amelia placed a hand lightly on his shoulder, grounding both him and herself. Then she looked back at Sebastian, her gaze steady, controlled, but no longer entirely closed. You do not understand what you are asking for, she said. Her voice remained calm, but there was something deeper beneath it now. Not fear. Not hesitation. Memory. Sebastian held her gaze without flinching. Then explain it to me. The words came out quieter than before, but more certain. He was no longer asking for permission. He was asking for truth. Amelia studied him for a long second, as if deciding whether he was capable of hearing it, whether he was willing to carry what came with it. The boys shifted slightly beside her, their presence a constant reminder of what was at stake, of what had already been built without him. Finally, she exhaled slowly, a controlled release, as if something inside her had reached its limit. 5 years ago, she began, her voice steady, you did not just walk away from me. Sebastian felt the words before he fully processed them. She paused, not for effect, but because the next part mattered more than anything else she had said so far. Her gaze did not leave his. You walked away from something that would have changed everything. The sentence settled between them, heavier than anything else that had been spoken. And for the first time, Sebastian realized that the truth he had been chasing was not just about what he had missed. It was about what had been hidden from him for a reason. And that reason was still standing in front of him, deciding how much he was allowed to see. The words did not fade after she said them. They stayed, suspended between them, heavy and unmovable. Sebastian did not respond immediately, not because he did not have something to say, but because for the first time in a long time, he understood that speaking too quickly would only prove her right. That he still did not understand. The city continued around them, indifferent, unaware that something far more significant than any business deal or public moment was unfolding in the middle of an ordinary afternoon. Amelia did not look away. She held his gaze, steady, controlled, but there was something deeper beneath it now. Not just memory. Not just restraint. Something closer to exhaustion. Not physical. Emotional. The kind that built over years, not moments. Lucas shifted slightly beside her, glancing up at her face, reading something in her expression even if he did not understand the words being exchanged. Leo mirrored the movement instinctively, standing just a little closer, as if proximity alone could maintain the balance they were used to. Sebastian noticed it. Of course he did. He noticed everything now. The way they moved around her. The way they anchored themselves to her without thinking. The way she responded without effort. This was not new for them. This was routine. This was life. And he had never been part of it. Then tell me, he said finally, his voice quieter now, but far more grounded than before. Not demanding. Not pushing. Just asking. Amelia studied him carefully, as if searching for something that had not been there 5 years ago. Something that might make this conversation different from the one that ended everything. That night, she said slowly, choosing each word with precision, you made it very clear what you wanted your future to look like. Sebastian did not interrupt. He could not. Because he remembered. Not every detail. Not every word. But enough. Enough to know that she was not exaggerating. There was no room in it for anything uncertain, she continued. No room for anything that could not be controlled, planned, or guaranteed. The words did not come with accusation. They came with clarity. The kind that had been lived with long enough to lose its edge. Sebastian's jaw tightened slightly, not in denial, but in recognition. She was right. He had said those things. Maybe not in those exact words, but the meaning had been there. Unmistakable. Amelia glanced briefly at the boys, then back at him. And I knew, she said, her voice lowering just enough to separate the next part from everything else, that if I told you what I suspected, you would have tried to fix it. Sebastian frowned slightly, the word catching him off guard. Fix it? Amelia nodded once. Control it. Redefine it. Turn it into something that fit your plan. The statement landed with a quiet weight that made it difficult to dismiss. Because it was not wrong. It was exactly what he would have done. What he had always done. Sebastian exhaled slowly, the realization settling deeper now, not just as information, but as something personal. Something that had shaped everything that came after. So you decided not to give me the chance, he said, not as an accusation, but as an understanding he was still trying to process. Amelia held his gaze, and for the first time, there was no deflection in her answer. I decided they deserved a life that was not built on conditions. The words were simple, but they carried 5 years of meaning behind them. Sebastian looked at Lucas and Leo again, really looked this time, not just seeing himself in them, but seeing them as they were. Separate. Whole. Already complete without him. That realization did not weaken his resolve. It changed it. That does not mean I stop here, he said quietly. Amelia did not react immediately. She watched him, measuring, waiting. Then something in her expression shifted, not resistance, not acceptance, but something more complicated. Something unfinished. You will not get to rewrite the past, she said softly. Sebastian shook his head slightly. I am not trying to. His voice remained steady, grounded in something that had not been there before. I am trying to understand what I was never allowed to see. The distinction settled between them, fragile but real. Amelia looked at him for a long moment, then finally, slowly, she nodded once. Not agreement. Not surrender. Something else. Acknowledgement. But as she turned slightly, guiding Lucas and Leo to her side, her voice came one last time, quieter than before, but carrying more weight than anything else she had said. If you knew the full truth about that night, you would not be standing here asking questions. She did not explain. She did not clarify. She simply walked away, the boys moving with her, their small steps steady, familiar, certain. Sebastian remained where he was, watching them disappear into the flow of the city, the words echoing in his mind with a clarity he could not ignore. Because whatever truth she was holding back was not something simple. And for the first time, he realized that finding it might change everything he thought he knew about himself.